Hello, I'm just going to make a quick little video explaining the core features on how to use Davinci Resolve. Make this video because I've been asked a lot of questions on how to do certain things, and hopefully this video will answer some of those questions so that I don't have to repeat myself multiple times. Anyway, when you first open up the Davinci Resolve program, you'll be greeted with a screen like this. Won't be exactly the same because this is just showing some of the projects that I've already worked on. Yours will only involve the untitled project. So the first thing you need to do is create your project. You either double click on the entitled project in the top left, or you can click on the new project button at the bottom right. The program is ready. It'll open up the screen here. And in this screen, this is where all of the work is done. This tab that we're currently in is the Cut tab. I end up using this tab the most. It is the area where you amass all your stock footage, and then you put it into a timeline, and then you cut out all the boring bits and stitch the program all together for the end product. When you have stock footage, you will be putting it in this top left area over here. So for example, you take any of your stock footage, I'll be using this, and I will grab it and drop it into there. And you will get this pop up most of the time. This is just changing the program's frame rate to the same frame rate that your software works at. To keep things simple, I'm going to edit in the same frame rate that the footage is recorded in. So I'm going to ask it to change it to the same frame rate. If you do have clips that are multiple different frame rates, having a different editing frame rate and a different recording frame rate isn't that big of an issue. It just makes it like a millisecond faster to do certain editing things. Most of the time you won't really realize the difference. So just change it to the same frame rate that you put in. I could put in multiple footage in here. I could also put in pictures or music. So once you have your footage in here, you'll have a bunch of little videos, clips in the top left. If you end up having lots of clips, like I sometimes do in my highlight videos, you can create bins. This is essentially making a folder. So I can make a folder for music, if I could actually spell it properly, and a folder for clips, and a folder for pictures and screenshots, and so on and so forth. And you just drag and drop them into each of them. When you have your footage over here, it's not actually editing yet. The program is just looking at it. And it's important to note that the program will use the directory that you drag and dropped it from. So if you have this recording on your desktop and you move it away from your desktop, then the program is going to break and you're going to have to find the software again. So be sure to keep the original file in an area that you won't delete it or move it. Once you have your files, you can drag and drop it into the timeline at the bottom. Some things that you'll want to do in the footage is you might want to cut it apart. So if I seek ahead in this footage, I know that I get rid of the UI in the video, and I only want the part where the UI isn't there anymore. So I'll keep scrubbing ahead, find that's the exact moment where I remove it. I can clip that. I can take this bit over here, can move wherever I want. I could move it to the top area, I could move it down there, whatever you really want. I am just going to remove it because I don't need it anymore. I'm going to keep the footage going. Keep going, keep going, keep going. And let's say I only need a few seconds of this clip. So I'm going to stop it right there. Remove that little bit over there. Now I've found all the footage that I need and I can edit it however I want. But this is just a stale clip. If you were fine with this, you could go on to the next stage, which is rendering, but I could show that a little bit later. I'll show a few little things that you might want to do. For example, you might want to put a transition in. And at the top left over here, normally you're in the media pool. If you go to the transitions tab, it'll show a bunch of different transitions that you might be able to put in, and you can preview them just by hovering over each button. Once you found something that you like, I quite like the dip to color dissolve. This is literally just fading to black. You just take it and you drag it onto your clip. Then you'll notice the clip will have a fade to black at the beginning, and I could do that at the very end as well. So I have a fade to black at the beginning, at the end. It's just a little easier on the eyes, and if you have multiple clips that jump all over the show, it's really nice to do that. Each tab at the top left also has sub-tabs. So there's some transitions that you have for audio, and you can also favorite these things with a little star, and you have a favorites tab. Another thing that you might want to do for your videos is you might want to add text to it, and that is shown in the titles tab. I like to use the text plus feature, not the regular text, because I find that the text plus has extra settings that I find useful. Once you want to use it, you don't want to replace the footage at the bottom. You want to have the text displayed on top of it. So you will drag and drop it into the layer above the footage, and that will show it on the video over here. At any stage, if you want to preview it in full screen, there's a button at the top right here, which you can watch the recording just like that. Do note that I've actually muted the background audio in here. You could just mute it from this unmute track button over here. But there's also a tab for music, which I use because I actually record in multiple tracks. That's a little bit more of an advanced thing, and if you wanted to know about that, you could ask me outside of this video. This video is just about basics. Little few things that you can do for editing it. All the editing of the clips and stuff will show up in the top right over here. That is the same for the video. For example, in the video, you could change the audio, or you could change the zoom. If you wanted to zoom in a little bit more, you could change it right over there. Let me reset that real quick. And in the text, you could do the exact same thing. You could change the size of it. You can change the color. And, well, a lot of things. There's so many things, and honestly, just keep playing around. There will be other little categories that you can open up. There's layout options, transform, shading, image, and there's actually a bigger category that I like to use, which is the settings category. This just has all the regular things for rotation and stuff like that. Another little interesting thing, which is slightly on the advanced side, but I find myself using it quite often, is these little diamonds over here. And these are like little milestones. And you can, in the timeline, you could set up multiple milestones. And in each of these milestones, you can have a different setting for something. And the program will automatically stitch together, essentially, if you have a zoom of 1 at one stage, and then you have a zoom of 5 at another stage, between those two milestones, the program will transition from a zoom of 1 to 5. So say at the beginning of this little text set area over here, I will give the text the size of 1. I'll click on the milestone, and you'll see that doesn't do anything. That's because the entire clip of the text is just at 1. But if I go to the very end over here, and I give it another milestone, and then I change its size to something like 5, you'll start to see that from the beginning to the end, you'll see the text start to change in size. And you can do this for multiple things. You could animate the movement of it. So say you put a milestone over here for 0, 0, and you put a milestone over here where the text moves up to the side, you'll see it starts to move. That's a very basic thing that I use in a bunch of the things, and there are other ways to automate this. Example of that is sticky text, and I've got a separate video that I have kept in a little Discord server. So if you have access to the Davinci Resolve tips, that's underneath the clips and highlights tab, just listed right over here. There's a bunch of videos that we've listed in here for tips and tricks on how to use Davinci. And sticky text is right over here. Essentially, you can put a box around your finger or your hat or, I don't know, a tank or something, and the program will automatically follow that. You can find that out, watch that video. That YouTuber does a way better job of explaining it than I do. Anyway, just a little bit more explanation of the basic features of Davinci Resolve. There is the Edit tab, which is slightly different. It's more zoomed in. It'll show you more details. For example, the multiple audio tracks that I have here. I've got my recording software, OBS, records different tracks of audio for game volume, microphone volume, and Discord volume. That just allows me to change the volume of them and mute certain tracks in the software over here. If you're interested in having a similar recording setup, I can explain that at another time. I don't like to edit in this window because it's a little smushed together, zoomed in almost, but you can do whatever you want. This window has a lot more sections for editability. It's the edit tab after all. There's a lot more things that you can do when you right click on certain options. Just play around. I don't have all the answers to everything. I've learned most of this program on literally just playing around. There is a fusion window, which I don't think you should look at this point. It's kind of complicated. if I were to give an example on how the Fusion window works, if you see all the other titles over here, there's some animated titles that do interesting things. For example, this one just pops out from the bottom left, and one that I use quite often is this one over here. And if I put that over here, and I take a look at that in the Fusion window, you'll see that this is all animated using the Fusion with a bunch of little nodes over here, and they're honestly kind of complicated, and I have no idea how they really work. The way I use the Fusion window is just by copying and whatever other people do. For example, the sticky text over here uses Fusion, and I just copied whatever he did. Moving on, we've got a color tab. If you wanted to change the color of certain things, you could do that here. I don't really know how to use it, so I can't really explain it. There is the music tab, which just shows all the different audio. I don't really use it that much, so I can't really tell you much about it. But then we go to the deliver tab. When you have finished editing everything and you want to turn it into an MP4 file, you can go to this tab over here. What I like to do is click on the YouTube 1080p template, give it a name and a location. So I'll just give it a random name, and I will give it a location just on my desktop. And once you're finished, you click on Add to Render Queue, and then you click on Render All. Depending on how beefy your computer is and how long the video is, that will determine how long it takes to actually render the video, and you will notice your computer probably spinning up its fans because it's very taxing on the CPU and GPU and stuff like that. Anyway, it is finished now, and I can quickly go and open up the file that I saved on my desktop. Here it is. And then it gets to a point where I've got that custom text, and it gets to another point where I've added that bit in there. That's how you use Davinci. And I could go and take this and upload it to YouTube now. All of the Davinci settings, you can learn them on your own time. If you want to get a quick answer, ask me. I might have an answer for you. YouTube is another good place to check. Google's another place to check, and literally just playing around. And another area that I like to play around with is the effects tab. This tab has a bunch of cool effects that you can add to your video. For example, the binocular effect, which just makes it look like you're looking through some binoculars. Do note that some of these are premium only versions. Let me see if I can find one. I actually don't even know. So some of these, if I try to apply them, yeah, there we go. You have a limited Davinci Resolve. I can't use this because I don't pay for the program, so I can't use that. That's the only limitation I found so far in this program. Some of the effects I can't use. Boo-hoo. All the other core features of this program, I can use just easily. There we go.